Hello and welcome to the Cottage Industry Fibers podcast, episode 1, technically take 2. I actually recorded my very first episode last night and quickly discovered that there was no audio. So hopefully we've got it fixed this time and we can put together a good show. My name is Kim and you can find me on Ravelry, Plurk, Instagram, and Twitter as Continental Kim. But most often you're going to find me on Instagram or Ravelry and sometimes Plurk. But those are really the best places to catch me. I wanted to start off, being the first show, giving a little bit of information about me and kind of my history getting to the point that I'm at now with fiber crafting and other types of crafts. Probably for most of my life, I've been doing some sort of crafting, crochet, cross-stitch, quilting. Just really enjoy those type of activities that let you take something very simple and make it into something amazing with very minimal, supplies, in fact. So just really enjoyed that for as long as I can remember. But one thing I could never figure out was knitting. And I really wanted to, and I tried a couple times, but I just couldn't make it work. So about, I think I figured out 15 years ago, my husband, who was in the Navy but has since retired, we got orders to Iceland and had the opportunity to live there for 3 years. And while I was there, I was in a quilting group on the base. But we had a lovely Icelandic lady named Margaret who joined our group regularly. And one meeting of the group, it was close to Christmas, and she was knitting rather than quilting. And I looked over at what she was working on. It was fabulous, of course, and I told her that I loved the idea of knitting, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't learn. And she assured me that she would not only be able to teach me how to knit, but that she could do it with my very first project, being an Icelandic yoked colorwork sweater. So I thought, sure, she's the expert. She knows what she's talking about. Let's do this. And we went, got yarn and got needles and got to work on knitting a sweater. She had me start with the button band of the body, doing, knit, purl, and going from there. And then the body was knit in the round and stockinette all the way up to the sleeves, and that all seemed pretty straightforward. And then it was time to do the sleeves, and had to learn how to do DPNs, or knit with DPNs in the round. And I think the best part of that experience is that never once did she tell me, this is kind of hard. I'm worried about you being able to do this. Instead, she just acted like it was nothing, and anybody could do it, and just put me in the right direction and set me on my way. So that's where I learned to knit, and I actually made quite a few sweaters for family and friends while we were in Iceland. Then right after Iceland, we got stationed in Hawaii, and my only experience with yarn at this point for knitting was Icelandic wool. So I tried to find a yarn shop in Hawaii and only found a shop that pretty much had the novelty yarns that were used in Hawaii to make these beautiful, I think they were crocheted. I don't remember how we made them, but pretty sure you used a crochet hook to make these beautiful leis out of this novelty yarn. So they had a ton of that, but nothing else I would really have been familiar with for knitting sweaters. So Icelandic wool, I had actually brought a lot with me, but wasn't really something I was going to work with a lot in Hawaii, being, a lot hotter than Iceland. So I put my knitting needles down for a while. After 3 years in Hawaii, we got transferred to Jacksonville. It took me another 3 years in Jacksonville to reach out to try to find the knitting community here. And I actually did an online search for knitting and the town close to me, and happened to find the sock knitting tutorial by Come to Silver. It's her name is K Bell on Ravelry, and I think if you go on Plurk and put in Come to Silver, it comes up with her, but it just says Silver. And it happened to also be right before the Knit in Public Day. So she and I actually met up there and became fast friends. And I also had the opportunity to meet a lot of other amazing crafters in this area. Nearby, I have Picnic Knits, Karina Ferguson. She's a wonderful designer. Kimber, Kimber Knit. I think it's Kimber Knits on Plurk, but a lot of people would probably know her. Who else? Well, there's just a huge knitting and spinning community down in Gainesville, which we're not that far from. There's a lot of expert spinners and just a lot of great people. So, being relatively inexperienced, it was fabulous hanging out with all these people because, you know, the first time they saw me doing cables with a cable needle, and I was searching for my cable needle, and asking if anyone had one, and they said, well, we could teach you to do that without a cable needle. And that just seemed totally foreign and impossible to me. But sure enough, they had me doing it within just a little while. And then one day I went to Kristen's house and she was spinning, and I was mesmerized. I just couldn't believe what she was able to do with this spinning wheel and what looked like just a whole bunch of fluff. So I got interested in spinning and started doing that, and then weaving, and then I'd love to learn felting, and I'd kind of like to learn bobbin lace, and it's just one of those things that there's such a vast amount of knowledge in this area that I'm really enjoying the opportunity to get to learn to do some of these things. But aside from knitting and spinning, I am a mother of 2 daughters. And like I said, my husband, we've been married for 23 years, and he was in the Navy but has since retired and now works locally as a contractor. And I work in promotional products and marketing commercial print. So that's kind of my real world job, but really this podcast is more about the fibery fun stuff. The reason, one other thing, and it'll come back up again later. The thing I'm almost as passionate about as fiber crafting is my husband and I are both mini motorers. And what that means is that we are Mini Cooper enthusiasts. We hang out with a group of other Mini Cooper owners, and we do regular drives with them and go on trips, and we just have a blast. My husband drives a Mini Cooper S Countryman, and I drive a Mini Cooper S convertible. And those events are fabulous. And when we go, if at all possible, I'll try to find new local yarn shops or new to me shops because they're in areas I've never been to before. So I'm going to talk a little more about that later, having to do with the yarn shops. But part of the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I think you can see in the video, it looks like I have raccoon eyes. The reason for that is because, like I said, I drive a convertible, and I have those wrap-around, prescription sunglasses so that I can, see what it is that I'm doing while I'm driving without being blinded by the sun here in Florida. So anyway, sorry, I had a little blip there. My screensaver came on. But anyway, so if you see me and I look a little red in the face or, have these little raccoon eyes, it's just because I've been out enjoying the sun and motoring in my convertible. So hopefully it's not too distracting. The other thing is, if you see me in the real world, you'll see me with glasses on. I always wear glasses. But because of the reflection from the screen, it's a little hard to have those on. I think they're kind of distracting. So anyways, those are gone for now. And if you see me squinting at the screen, it's because I'm trying to read my show notes. And the reason for podcasting is in being able to travel, I've met up, with people coming across country, where people that I knew online, I was just able to meet up and have lunch with them and make friends with, any number of people from fiber retreats. I went to the Verdant Griffin open house 2 years ago, and that was so much fun. I met so many great people, but I haven't seen them in person since. And it would be wonderful to kind of keep up this way through podcasting and just kind of having my knit night, but not with the locals, more my distant fiber friends. So that's why I'm doing this, and hopefully it works out, and keep it up on a regular basis. And I'd love to see my fiber friends online in Ravelry. We've got a group already set up, and comment in there, and just look forward to seeing everyone. So let's get into the show. Like I said, way too much talking. Well, I guess it's gonna keep talking, but it's gonna actually be about knitting and spinning now. I don't have a lot of works in progress right now because I just finished a super secret knitting sample project. I didn't design it, but I knit it, and it's going to be published somewhere that I can't tell you, but I'll show you when it comes out. I'm very excited. It's going to be really cool. But anyways, enough about that, because I don't have anything to show you. Can't even show you the yarn. The other thing I've been working on, which is kind of just my travel, keeping your purse knitting, is I have these socks, and this is the Bad Amy glitter base. It's like, I think it's 80/20 with a little bit of the stellina in it, with the coordinating toe. It's on my size 1 signature DPNs. So apparently those Icelandic DPN classes stuck. But this sock, I really should have looked at the gauge on the label before picking what needle size to use, because I wound up having cast on extra stitches to make it big enough, because my gauge is really tiny. The label said it's supposed to be 6.5 to 8 stitches per inch, and I think I'm getting 9 or 9.5 on this sock. So I did have to put extra stitches into it. That's just this toe, but this is the second sock. So I'll show you what the first one looks like. Can you see it? I hope you can. How's that? I'm looking at my other little screen there. Oh, that's better. You can see the whole thing that way. So, okay, I based this sock on the Vergeven pattern. I'm probably butchering the name, but it's by Renee Strauss, and hers is kind of a ribbed pattern, and I just did this in vanilla. But the things that I incorporated are, I really like the way that she does the heel, and she has shadow wraps in for the short rows coming, through the heel turn. So the way that fits on me is really nice. I know that different socks fit different people differently, but this is what works for me. So if you haven't tried that pattern, you want to check it out. It's Vergeven by Renee Strauss. The other thing I really like about this, and let me see if you can see. See how it looks like the gusset takes a little longer here? That's because she has you increase in that pattern every 3 rows instead of every other row. What that does is that starts the increases a little bit lower, and for my foot, that helps to, it just seems to fit a little bit better because it's getting larger a little bit sooner. So I've really enjoyed this pattern. This is, I think, the 3rd time that I've done this pattern. The first time I did actually do it as a ribbed pattern, but since then I've just been mainly using those two, her rate of increase and her heel, and then just doing a vanilla sock for the rest. But really loving the way that those are coming out. So that's it for the knitting. I guess I do have one more thing, which is technically still a work in progress. What this is this is based on Amy Herzog's custom fit, or it's from her custom fit online program, where what you do is you take very detailed measurements, you enter them in, you take a swatch of the yarn that you want to use, you enter in your exact swatch, and then you tell the program what style of sweater you want to knit, and it outputs a design for you. And pretty much the way that it works is you can get all the way to the end to where you're ready to output, and you don't have to pay for the pattern until you're at the end. And you even get the opportunity to see how the measurements, how it says, okay, for your measurements, this is how big we think that the finished hip should be, and this is how big we think the finished bust should be. And you have the opportunity to actually change that. If you want those a little bit snugger or a little bit looser before it generates a pattern, you can do that too. So I think it's a really great program for especially those of us who don't necessarily fit a standard size. So I made this, and I made it completely, it's just a totally vanilla sweater pattern. I don't know if you can see it. It's in Woolmy's Twin, and the reason I say it's not done yet is because it has a few issues. The pattern itself was great, but some of the choices I made weren't so great. First of all, the way that I did the increases on the collar made it that when I picked up, there's some real, I don't know if you see the gapping. I think it's worse on the other side. Anyways, there's some gapping, between where the edge was and where the collar is. So I'm just going to take a strand of yarn and run it through almost like I'm doing a mattress stitch for the seam, just to snug that all back up. So it needs that. The other thing that it needs is, can you see, I cast off the collar, or the neckline, too loose. So, I used to suffer from always casting off too tightly, and then I couldn't pull, the sweater over my head. Well, I didn't take into consideration that this is more of a boat neck collar, and it didn't have that problem so much. And not only that, but casting off a little bit tighter, or binding off, would actually help the neckline to shape itself a little bit better, because it needs to be a slightly smaller diameter along the inside than on the outside, because of the distance. The 1 inch here makes it need to be a smaller diameter on the inside. So that I need to pick out the entire bind off and redo that. The last bit of help that it needs is, I don't know if you can see, let me, if I back up a little bit. So I had 3 skeins of Woolmy's, and I really, really didn't want to have to get a 4th skein, and I didn't want to have to hunt destashes and try to make that happen. So I convinced myself that the estimates for how much yardage I was going to need were wrong, and that I didn't need those last, quarter of a skein to finish this sweater. And the way that I made that happen, I controlled the yardage, was I also made it a relatively short sweater. Well, turns out I needed that extra yardage after all, so I had to go hunting for a D-stash anyways. I should have just made the sweater the length that I really wanted it to be, which is about 2 inches longer. So, since I have the rest of the 4th skein, what I'm probably going to do, and you can see that I have not woven in my ends either, what I'm probably going to do is cut off this cut a strand and then pick out a row and pull this seed stitch border off the bottom there, and then pick those stitches back up and knit with that fourth skein until I can get, a couple more inches on there. I think it'll be okay with that a little extra length of seed stitch. I don't think it'll be a problem. The one thing I really, really like about this fabric, I did it in stockinette because I wanted to see how well this pattern, this custom fit pattern, was really going to fit. So I didn't want to mess it up by adding a textured stitch or a cable or something that would kind of affect the fabric. I really wanted to know, straight stockinette, almost like sewing with muslin, how this was going to work. And like I said, it fits really well. And one thing, so I'm happy about that. And one thing that can sometimes happen with wool minds is you can get a little bit of pooling, from skein to skein. And you can make that less by switching skeins every other row, so you use one skein and you knit back and forth, and then you pick up the second skein, knit back and forth, pick up the first one again and knit back and forth. The problem with that sometimes, though, is if your two skeins are too far off from each other, you'll get kind of unintentional striping instead of pulling. So what I did on this, since I had 3 skeins anyways that I was hoping to use just those 3, is I actually switched skeins every row. So I balled up all 3 skeins, and essentially what happens is, let me see if I can get it in here, I pick up skein 1 and knit across. Pick up skein 2, knit back. Okay, so the end of skein 1's over here, come back here, now the end of skein 2 is here, and I pick up skein 3. I come back across, and now I leave the end of skein 3 here, and I pick up skein 1, twist those, and so they're locked in, and bring 1 back. Pick up 2, go back, pick up 3, and you just go back and forth. And it really, makes for a nice, you still get that little bit of semi-solid going, but you don't really get, any pooling or striping for the most part. So, anyways, really happy I made that decision, and I like how it came out well enough that I'm willing to make all of those fixes to make it work, so I can wear a plain stockinette with seed stitch sweater. That's okay. I like it. Okay, so spinning works in progress. I have a couple of those as well. Right now I've got on, I have a 30-inch Reeves, a shacked by Shacked. I have a shacked matchless, and I have a shacked sidekick. And right now I'm just really using the matchless and the 30-inch Reeves, but I do pull out the sidekick for, traveling, or it's actually a slower wheel because of the smaller size of the wheel itself. So that one's great when I want to do kind of a thicker yarn. I want to slow it down without changing the whirl on one of the other wheels. I can just put it on the sidekick, and it's great. But anyways, this is what I'm spinning on the Reeves right now. This is Cormo from a fleece. It was a ram fleece named Rudy. And I got this from Sue Roiser, I think, at cormo.us. And I'm telling you where I got it, even though she's actually dispersed her flock. She had some health issues and decided to, shut down the farm. So technically her flock is not, it's all over the country now, I believe. But I got an email recently, and Sue was saying that she still has some roving. So if you've ever been interested in spinning Cormo, and this is fabulous stuff. It's very soft, but very, this looks super thin, but it blooms so much when you apply it and wash it. It turns into this fabulous kind of squishy um, yarn. Here it is, 3-plied, that has, not only does it have a lot of, I mean, this is, you know, very, very lofty kind of yarn, but it's also got, I'm trying to show you here, a lot of, well, here, let me just do this. Well, gosh, how can you see? Okay, it's got a good amount of stretch to it. So it's not super, super stretchy, but it's enough that you're going to get, you know, really pretty cables from this type of yarn. So I don't know if you can, how well you can see that, but anyways, I love working with Cormo. It's beautiful stuff. It's, you know, easy to work with, I think. And actually mine was processed at Moro Fleece Works, and when you get it from Moro, it's not in these balls. I did that so I could split it by the ounce to know how much I was spinning. But it's this really nice little roving that's in a carded preparation. So it's pin drafted roving from carded preparation, not combed. And the benefit of the carded is that you can actually do long draw straight off of this roving. So I really love the way that Moro processes the fiber. It makes for, and they clean it beautifully. There's not a whole bunch of you know, lanolin left in it. There is some a little bit sometimes, but not to the extent that, you know, it's going to be a hindrance if you don't like to spin in the grease. So anyways, that is the Cormo that I'm working on. And the other thing I'm working on right now for spinning is, where is it? Oh, here we go. I have been using some hand cards to blend merino cashmere silk roving with vicuña cloud. So what that looks like is, here is that focusing? Is that, I don't know. But here is my Neil Brand support spindle with the singles on here. Can you see that? Anyways, so what you do is this is the merino cashmere, and I think I just got it from Paradise Fibers or something like that. This is the merino cashmere silk roving, and the staple length on this is, you know, I'd say about 2 inches. Okay. And then what I'm blending it with is this bag of vicuña cloud, which is essentially just a bunch of fluff from vicuña. And this is literally the shortest staple length of anything I've ever seen. I'm sure there's probably something shorter out there, but can you even see that? I mean, this is crazy. Can you see how tiny that is? Well, the challenge that presents is that I won't say you can't, because I'm sure somebody has found a fabulous way of doing this. I just know that it's supposed to be difficult to blend something that's this staple length with something that's this staple length. So what I'm doing is pulling off just grabbing the ends of the roving and pulling off one staple length of fiber. And then I take out my scissors and I cut that staple length right in half. And that reduces it enough that I can put it on the carder, a fine hand cards, and blend it with this. And this still winds up being a little bit lumpy bumpy. But when it spins, it comes out for the most part, and what doesn't come out, it's going to have, I think, a really nice texture. I'm going to two-ply it back on itself, so I think it's going to make a really neat finished yarn with a little bit of halo, and just kind of that little bit of added gold from the vicuña. So I'm really happy with how that's going. I've just gotten started, and since I'm carding that and making poonies a couple at a time, it's going to be a long time before I finish that project. But, excuse me, as I work on it, I will definitely keep you apprised. Okay. So, is that it? I guess this last one, I don't really have finished objects so much. I do have a skein of finished yarn that is 3-ply. It's Into the World, 40% superwash merino, 40% regular merino, and 20% silk. And there you go. It's a 3-ply. I think I already said that, but I'm not sure. You can kind of see the color on the inside there. And the reason I'm not calling this a finished object is because it's actually part of a larger project. I am spinning for a Less is More cardigan. And the yarn, I've got 9 braids that I'm trying to spin for this from 4 different colorways. And I plan on, you blend those skeins within the Less is More cardigan. You start with one skein and then you kind of switch back and forth between skeins for a little while and go to the next skein. So that's kind of where that color blending takes place. I haven't done it yet because this is the only skein I've gotten done so far. I plan on taking a portion of each colorway and using that fiber to blend within the ply to make actual skeins of yarn that are also blended between colors, if that makes sense. So I would have like color A and color B, and this skein would be 3 plies of color A. And then the next skein would be 2 plies of color A and 1 ply of color B. And then the next skein would be 1 of A, 2 of B. And then the last skein would be all 3 plies of B. And then it would do the same thing going from color B to color C. So I'm fairly certain that's how I'm going to do it. I have a whole nother braid of just this. I'm sorry, the colorway on this is Cheshire. But I have a whole nother braid of this that I have to spin on its own, so I have that much time to decide if that's how I'm going to shift the colors. My only concern with shifting the colors is it limits the amount of yardage that I'll have to use. And the reason why is because you start with that one that's all color A, and then you get to the point where you need to start transitioning between color A, or the first skein with just color A, and that next skein that's blended. And then eventually you have to start transitioning to the next skein, and you're probably not going to be entirely out of this first skein up here at the top before having to switch over. So you might wind up with leftovers from multiple skeins. So if it looks like I'm going to be tight on yardage based on the first 2 skeins that I finish, then I might kind of move away from that idea and just do all, 3 skeins of, I have 3 skeins, 3 braids of Cheshire, and then 3 other colorways which have slipped my memory right now. One is Amusing Anecdote, and I can't remember the other 2, but the next time I spin some, I'll let you know, because I didn't write it in the show notes. But, so anyways, I have until I finish another braid to decide if that's really how I'm going to do it or not. You know how things are. My plans could change 20 times between now and then, but I'll let you know how it goes. That's the beauty of this, is we can change patterns, we can change plans, we can change fiber, we can really make and create whatever we want to. Let's see. That project that I just showed you, the one that's for the Less is More cardigan, that's also part of the Spin the Bin on Completely Pointless and Arbitrary Spinning Group on Ravelry. And what we're doing is everybody put a bunch of fiber into a bin, and we have until the end of the year to spin the entire bin. So that's actually a fun way that we're all encouraging each other to finish up, some fibers that we have in our stash. So I don't really have any finished objects that are new finished objects. But part of the reason I wanted to do a podcast is also to keep um, motivated to finish things that have been either done for a long time and just need to be blocked, or hibernating projects that I haven't touched in years. And with that in mind, can I just come clean here? This is kind of bad. But this is my bag of finished projects that just have to be blocked. See? You see all the colors in there? So hopefully my goal is to have at least one each until these are totally blocked for each episode. So I think if I make myself a goal of one block project per episode, then that will hopefully get them done, and I'll stop leaving them in a bag. But just a little taster of what's in here. This is a Woolmeise lace. Is that the right side or the wrong side? It's hard to tell on this one. Woolmeise lace kind of color work shawl that's in there. And, this one's another Woolmeise lace shawl. That's a, the pattern is called Quadrastiche Deck. And I know I'm butchering that name. But I don't know if you can see any of the lace work in that at all. But it'll be better when it's blocked. Let's see what else I have in here. Oh, this is an entire shrug made from Verdon Griffin Traveler. And this is kind of a cool thing where it's a wrap sort of shrug. It's got sleeves. But anyways, enough about that. Hopefully I will have one of these projects blocked to show you for next week. And the other thing are those hibernating projects I mentioned. So I decided to pull out an old project and, show it to you guys and then kind of decide what to do with it. Just take your input and see what everyone thinks. So this is shortly after I started knitting again. And my new friends were encouraging me in all things, including lace. I found this yarn at a local yarn shop, which has since closed its doors, which is very sad. I love that shop. But this is alpaca silk lace. And the colors are just beautiful. It's like a periwinkle and a gray. And it's a very fine lace. I was using it to make an Aeolian shawl by Elizabeth Freeman. I cast this project on June 15th of 2009. Almost 5 years ago. And this is what I've gotten done. There's like nothing to it. And it's not like I worked on it once and put it away and never looked at it again. I've picked it up a couple times and tried to work on it. It's got beading, which I love the beading in shawls. I really enjoy that. But what I'm not thrilled with is at the time I didn't realize that highly variegated patterns or yarns tend to mask the lace. So I think you see it worse. It seems worse in person, but you know what I mean? It's almost like that variegated yarn draws your eye away from the lace work. So I kept on getting disappointed with the way that it was coming out. So where I'm at right now, and the other problem is I used these Addy lace needles. And they're great for lace work, but if you let them sit too long, they start to tarnish. And now I've got a little bit of brown staining on the shawl where the needles were in contact with the yarn while it was being stored. So here's where I'm at. I can either frog the whole thing, try to save the yarn that is in this bit, or I can cut that and be done with this and just save what is still quite a bit of, I mean, you can see there's not really much missing from that ball. I don't remember what the yardage was in this yarn, but I know it was significant, so there's probably a good amount of yardage left here. So I can just cut it and be done with it. I give up the beads that way unless I want to go through and pull it apart afterwards. I don't know. My last option is to finish it, and the thing that's been keeping me from either frogging it or just cutting the yarn off and being done is that this is kind of nostalgic for me. It's the first time I went to go do this. I mean, it was the first time I ventured into this kind of beaded lace work, and so it would really just be the nostalgia of why I'd be finishing it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Go on the board, say something, let me know what you think, and I don't know, maybe I just need encouragement to let it go and be done with it. But anyway, so that is my hibernating project, which by the next episode I will have either back as a work in progress or have made a final decision about it. Okay, that is that. Now for a little bit of enabling. I doubt there will be many weeks that go by that I don't have some enabling. I hate to admit it, but it's true. This week, I have a couple things to show you. 2 of them are spoilers. So, I'm telling you that now. Give you a little bit of heads up. I'm reaching for it. It's coming over. Okay. Have you turned it off? Okay. This is from the Into the World March 2014 Luxe Club. It is a merino silk blend. This is your last chance to look away. The name of the colorway is What's This? And can you see that? Orange and pink and purple. See those beautiful colors? And then let me show you what is mixed in a little bit. And then I'll explain it. Look at that pop of green. Now let me tell you, before I started getting back into knitting, I was not a green fan. But I don't know what it is about this darn electric green color that I just love. I really, really love it. So the inspiration for this was a photograph that was submitted by one of the members of the club. And I think the theme was all things Tim Burton. You had to post pictures Tim Burton. And somebody had posted a picture from Nightmare Before Christmas. And it was of a scene where he's in a town and he's standing next to a snowman. And the town is lit in these orange and purple colors, which is where a lot of the coloring of this comes from. And kind of this red, dusky colors. And the snowman has this super lime green hat on. Did I mention he's standing next to a snowman? Meh. Anyways, he is. And the snowman has this shocking green hat on. And that hadn't really stood out to me in the picture. But apparently it stood out to Into the World because she brought that in, and I actually think I've seen it spun up a little bit, and it's coming out fabulous, So anyways, that is the Into the World March 2014 Club. And then I also have the Bad Amy Club, the March shipment of the Bad Amy Striping Sock Club. It is an 80-20 merino nylon blend. I'm getting ready to show it to you. Sorry for the crinkling. I took it out of the plastic for last night when I recorded the first time, and then I forgot today. But anyways, here it is. Let me show you. I don't want to show you the name yet. Hold on. Where is it? Okay. So Oh, I did show it to you. Gosh. Okay. Oh, is everything backwards? Okay, there we go. So here is the yarn. And this could not be more me if I had called her and said, could you please dye my own personal yarn? Gray and purple. Let me say anything purple, blue, blurple, or teal is okay in my book, and I will probably buy it if I see it. But, so, I know the colors probably aren't ideal on the screen, but this is a purple and gray striping yarn. And then it comes with the purple coordinating skein. Oh my gosh, this could not be better. I am so excited to knit these up. This base, by the way, is 400 yards, and this also has the 6.5 to 8 stitches per inch. I don't know if you can read that. Oh, the name. And she's taking a play on this horrible winter that everybody's having, and decided to call it Polar Vortex. So I just thought that was kind of cute. Probably not for the people who are having a really horrible winter. Anyways, so that is the Bad Amy skein, and hopefully I'll be casting something on with that soon. The last thing I have to show you is some yarn that I purchased because apparently I'm insane. Knitting and weaving and spinning are not weird enough, not crazy enough. So I have decided to try an heirloom lace stole. And to do that, I need cobweb yarn. And this also is kind of like a lilac color. I don't remember what the colorway name was. Oh, it's really not showing up on the screen. But let me show you how fine that is. You see that? Do you see how fine that yarn is there? This yarn is 2,600 yards to a 3.5 ounce skein. So I'm going to show that again here. Sorry, please disregard my horrible manicure, or lack of manicure, as it were. So that is all that this is. It's just this tiny, tiny little strand of yarn. I wish I had something that I could easily hold up and compare the two. Maybe I can do these. Here. Can you see this? Can you see the sock yarn versus the cobweb? So anyways, I need a little bit of help on this one, actually. This came from the Gossamer Web, before I forget. And here is her card. This is the, it is a merino cashmere silk, I believe. I'll have to look it up and put it in the show notes because there's not a label on the yarn itself. And the business card is just a business card. Although she did include, can you see that? A tiny little stitch marker. So that was nice. But, okay, so here is her card one last time. And this is Gossamer Web. She's known as Fleagle on a lot of social media. And the pattern that I plan on making is actually really cool. It was recreated by a group on Ravelry. Let me see if I can, what is the name of it? Did I write it down here? Yes, it's the Williamson Stole by the Ravelry Heirloom Knitting Forum. And pretty much what this group on Ravelry did is they found a photograph, or saw in a museum a photo of this stole that was knit, the end of, or early 1900s, I believe. And they reproduced they made the pattern based on the pictures, and they got permission from the museum, but they didn't, they don't want to profit from somebody else's work, essentially. So what they've done is they've published this pattern as a free pattern, just so that people have access to these heirloom patterns. And I'm ducking down so I can see if you can you see that, or is there too much of a glare? It's crazy. The lace. These are knit on the size 1 needles. And it's about 200 stitches across, a little over 200 stitches across on size 1 needles. So here's where I need your help. First of all, I'm a little bit afraid to wind this because I have the umbrella swift that I can, put up on the umbrella swift, and then I have my Strouch ball winder that it causes tension on the yarn to use the ball winder to pull the yarn off of, to make the swift spin. It makes tension on the yarn. And I am concerned that at that tiny of a fine yarn, that it's actually going to break the yarn, that tension. So, I don't know. I really don't want to wind it by hand. So if anyone has an idea of how I can accomplish winding this with the Strouch ball winder, but not putting so much tension on the yarn that it's going to break, that would be fabulous. I'd really love to hear what you have to say. Just go ahead and come on into the group and just comment on the episode thread and just let me know what to do with this yarn. The other thing I'm a little worried about is what kind of needles to knit it on, because I have circular needles. I have size 1 circulars, but I'm a little worried about the join. Because everything is so fine, I'm a little bit worried about trying to go back and forth over the join. And so I thought about going to straights, and I work predominantly on metal needles. So my fear with the straights is that if I ever put this project down, I'm just going to lose all the stitches right off the end. So I have an issue with bamboo needles. My tension, because I knit continental style, which is what I learned in Iceland, I have the yarn actually wrapped around my finger a couple of times, and then I hold it there. That's what holds the yarn so that I can pick the fiber as I'm knitting. And that, I think, sometimes makes a little more tension on the yarn itself. So my knitting just winds up getting too tight on a bamboo needle where it's kind of grippy. So I stick with the metal needles. That seems to work really well for me. But if there's like a great, in between straight signature metal needles and bamboo, that would be a good straight needle, let me know. Or if you know of a great circular needle that you don't think the join would be an issue at the size 1 needle, then again, let me know. Love to hear it, and hopefully I will have this cast on and working on it for the next episode. I'll see though, because I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling this month, and I'm not sure that that's a project I want to be traveling with, so I might have to wait until after. A couple more things. I'm really running long here. I'm sorry. I did not realize this is going to take this long. But it's also because I'm chatting a lot, and hopefully next time there won't be a whole bunch of background information about me. One thing I wanted to share with you is maybe not every episode, because that means I would have to buy a whole lot of fleeces. I have quite a few already, and what I want to do is share the different fleeces with you, just to give an idea of what's out there and what's available. I have this theory that all the best fleeces from the people who raise their sheep for hand spinners go straight to hand spinners, and then the next quality goes to the people that process fiber for hand spinners, and then the next quality kind of goes down to the commercial processors to make commercial yarns, and then the very last little bit is kind of sold in bulk to whoever wants it. I think that what happened to me the very first time that I tried Shetland wool, I got it at a fiber festival, and they had a bag, and they were actually reselling for a pretty major online retailer. I'm not going to say who, but it was an 8-ounce bag. It was really well priced, and I thought, oh, this is a great idea. I can try out Shetland. I bought it. I got it home, and it was the dirtiest, most felted bit of raw fleece that I've ever seen, and it was just a nightmare to try to work with. And I'm pretty sure I wound up just tossing it because I didn't like it. And I know that people talk all the time about how much they love spinning Shetland. So, and then I tried Into the World had a colorway, a club colorway that came, and it was on Shetland. And I spun that, and I actually liked that. I got that braid, though, from a D-stash, and it was a little bit felted, too. So I didn't know if that was because that's just what Shetland does, or if it was because in its travels trying to get to me. I don't know, because all of the other fibers I've ever gotten from Into the World are not felted at all, and are the best processed, hand-dyed fiber that you could find. So I didn't really think it had anything to do with that, but I don't know. I just kind of got this idea about Shetland that maybe that's just how it was. Well, I saw people just talking how much they love spinning Shetland, some beautiful fleeces that they had gotten, and I heard Stonehaven Farm come up a few times. So what I did is I messaged the farm, and I think her name is Lois. I want to say Lois. I sent her an email, and I said, here's what happened when I tried Shetland, but everybody seems to love it. So do you have a fleece that you can send me that would help me to appreciate Shetland? And so she wrote back, and she said, you know what, I have 2 that I can sell to you, and I think you're really going to like them. So I have them down here. And let me tell you, I am so glad that I kept my thoughts open to trying this again, because one of these fleeces is like silver gray with a little bit of white and a little bit of mixed in, but the majority of it is silver gray. And can you see that crimp? This is raw. This is totally unwashed right now. Okay. And this particular lock has a little bit more of the silver, the lighter shade in it. But if you look here, you can see I think the majority of this fleece is really going to be more this dark gray that looks almost like I don't know, it's got silver strands in it. Can you see that? Anyways, I washed up a small lock of it, and oh my goodness, this fleece is not really second coated at all. So this is all usable, spinnable, beautiful fiber, and the tips came off. There's like maybe 1/4 inch of the tips that were burnt tips that came right off. But this stuff is so soft. I don't think if I brought this fleece and I asked people, feel this and tell me what you think it is, I don't think that they would say Shetland, because it's not like soft like Cormo or Merino, but it's absolutely, I think it's going to be really fabulous to work with. So just, keep your options open, keep your mind open to new things, and don't necessarily discount something because you had a bad experience with it. Give it another try, and if it's a fleece that you're working with, try getting it from a farm that raises their sheep for hand spinners, and just let them know what you're looking for and see what you can get. This other fleece, I almost forgot about this one. This other fleece she sent me. Let me get it out. It's kind of that's a mess. This, of course, I picked the one lock that has a bunch of veg matter in it. But I don't know if you can see, but this one's more kind of caramel colored, a little bit more brown, but it is also very, very soft and nice crimp structure, and I think it's going to be lovely to spin. Um, I think I started to say something and then completely lost my train of thought on that, but I had mentioned about the tips being kind of burnt and that they would come right off. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. You know what? I wouldn't be worried about, I mean, a tippy fleece, when you lose a whole bunch of that tip, that's not great. But that little bit of the end, don't shy away from a fleece that has that necessarily, because what's happening is, especially in the fleeces that, everything's really packed into the fleece, is those tips are protecting all these fibers down here from getting gunk in them. And so it's all this is being kept nice and lovely because of those little tips that just pulled right off. So yeah, don't necessarily discount a fleece just because of that. That's sometimes a good thing. It protects that fiber. So anyways, okay. Really quick, because I didn't want to go over an hour, and I'm already over an hour. I mentioned earlier that we're big mini enthusiasts, and I try to fit in as many local yarn shops as I can when I go on these mini trips. So what I have on my car is a mount that lets me have this teeny tiny little GoPro camera. So what I can do is I can actually record the last couple minutes as we're heading up to a new yarn shop, and then take a few photos. Take a few photos around the shop as well. So I can almost kind of give you an idea of where the shop is and what it looks like in that area. On that note, last weekend we went we had heard of a new shop in St. Simons Island, Georgia, called Indigo Fiber Cottage, and decided, what the heck, that's like a 2-hour drive, love to go see a new shop, let's go. So jumped in the car, drove 2 hours, got to St. Simons Island. I do have a little bit of a recording of right as we're entering in St. Simons Island, and it's a great kind of tourist destination. It's not overly touristy, it's kind of a quiet town, but people go there for spring break, and it's just a really great little area to visit. It's right on the water, and it's just, I would have loved to have spent more time there. But anyway, so I'll post a video at the end of that little bit of as we're entering into town. Then when we got to the yarn shop itself, when they said it's a cottage, they were not kidding. I mean, there's like 80 square feet total of floor space that you could go in. You walk in and you look one way and you look the other and you're done. I mean, I was blown away. I think there was a total of maybe 10 skeins of yarn and about 10 or 12 sets of needles. She did have a few kind of quilting supplies as well, which was pretty cool. It's Roxanne's needles, like the betweens and the applique needles, so that's great. And then she had mostly like handbags. I'll post a couple pictures from the shop as well. It was really kind of a surprise. So what I would say about the shop is, absolutely, if you're in the area, stop in. It's in this really cute area where they've got these cottages where there's like 8 or 12 cottages all lined up like you would expect it, like a vacation beach area. But they're all little tiny shops. So I'd say go and check it out, but I don't know that I would necessarily make the trip just to go to that shop. Luckily, we were able to go and have lunch and, walk around a bit and enjoy the sweet shop, and we really had a good time. But I was a little bit surprised at the size of the shop. One thing that I noticed after we left there, though, is I looked it up on my iMaps, and when I brought up that shop, it came up and it showed blackthorn needles. I thought I think it said that was their website, was Blackthorn Needles or something like that. And I thought, well, that's really weird, So I looked up Blackthorn Needles, and they had the same contact information as this shop. So I thought, well, maybe this is the same person that makes blackthorn needles, but they didn't have any blackthorn needles in the shop. So I was so tempted to go back and ask them, are you blackthorn needles? But since I had no intention of buying any of the needles, I thought that would be kind of rude. So I didn't go. So if anybody knows, if that's just, if that's the same person that runs a shop and sells the needles, let me know. It's just curiosity, It's a conundrum and I couldn't solve it. So anyways, if you happen to know, let me know. Last but not least, I've got a giveaway for my first episode. It happened because if all goes well and it's edited properly, the beginning of the show will have a picture, the title page will be a picture of my new craft room. I intend to record in there eventually, but I'm not sure yet how to set up a camera in there so that I can record. I can use a little GoPro, I can set this up on a tripod, but then I can't see what's happening. When I hold something up to the camera, I can't see if you can see it or not. I can't see if it's in focus. I have no idea. So I'm trying to find a solution for recording and being able to see what's going on, but doing it away from the main computer, which is where I'm at right now in the computer room. But anyways, when we were in the process of putting together that new craft room for me, I discovered that I apparently bought the same book twice. So I have a copy of, can you see it? Fitted Knits by Stephanie Jappel. And this is actually, it's actually a pretty nice little book. I got it not for me so much, but for one of my daughters. She really wanted some kind of custom fit, tighter sweaters. And not all of them are tight, don't get me wrong. But this just happened to be very much her style. A lot of the patterns in here. So, particularly this one here. But anyway, so I bought this book twice, apparently, and so I thought what I would do is open up a thread on the group page and just go in there if you want, and why don't we put in how you found out about the podcast, what brought you to it for the first time here, and just, put in your post, and I will use a random number generator the next time I record and pick a winner for this book. Just real quick, like I said before, I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling this coming weekend. I'm going to Stitches. Very excited. Going with Kristen and Karina. I'm looking forward to that. The following weekend is Easter weekend, and I'm traveling to Boston to have a family reunion for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. So I don't think I'll have much time to do any local yarn shopping while I'm there, but hopefully we'll have a great time with the family. And then the following weekend, we're starting off on a 10-day vacation where I plan on going to lots of yarn shops. So hopefully I'll have a lot to share after that. Then way down the road in October, we're going to Rhinebeck. I can't believe I get to go. I'm telling you now because I'm that excited. But anyways, so that's kind of the next Fiber Fest after this crazy month of travels that I plan on going to, but who knows what's going to happen between now and then. In the meantime, I'll try to have my own little mini adventures and go to as many local shops that I can and share them with you as I'm able. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry to keep you this long, and hopefully won't be as long next time. But, go on the thread, join the group, leave comments. Let me know, what was good, what could have been better. I'm open to, constructive criticism, and we can always help each other out in that way. And I think that's probably about it for this time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye. Looks like it's I think we're going to need to start looking for some parking.
Yes, I think so.
Is there anything down here?
I don't think so. I can't tell.
Okay.
They have a sweet shop. I don't want to go to the sweet shop. I'm trying to be good.